Hi there. Over the years I've been asked by people like, as I'm a massive music fan and love the music, what's your favourite albums? And I've watched YouTube so many times with people's collections and what they like, and a lot of them are very, very interesting. Some people go into great detail, and I love listening to when people talk about certain things on music and their albums. But a lot of them seem to have the usual, the Beatles, the Stones, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin. These are albums we know the iconic albums they've done, and they've probably been over talked and over this. So I said I'd do one of my vinyl collection to veer away from them sort of bands, the big league bands, and some of my personal favourite ones. Some from the 70s, a lot from the 80s, and people slate the 80s, oh, it's a bad era for music. By Christ, it wasn't. It was brilliant. There was some brilliant stuff, as well as the 70s. There's a lot of crap in the 70s as well. So everyone has their stuff, whether if I call it crap, someone enjoys it. But I'm going to go through mine. I'm going to do 20 albums. I'm going to give a little chat about them, and I hope you enjoy it, and any views on it, it'd be great. And I might do a few more with different genres as I go along, because I've got so much stuff. So anyway, first of all, I'm going to go with number 20, and this is Robbie Robertson's from the American band, The Band. This was Robbie's, I think this was his first or second solo album at the time. It's a great album, it really is. It was produced by Daniel Lanois, who was on a very, very hot streak at the time after recording with Brian Eno The Unforgettable Fire and Joshua Tree with U2, which took U2 onto a stratosphere beyond anything they ever could do. And, Lanois also as well. I'm going to give a little nod here to Lanois. He resurrected Bob Dylan's career in the 80s. Dylan went through a real bad patch in the 80s. But he done an album with Bob Dylan, he produced it called Oh Mercy, and just check it out anyway, it is great. But he done this here, and there's 8 tracks on the album, there's 9 tracks on the album, and you've got Peter Gabriel collaborate with him, Fallen Angel, Broken Arrow. U2 collaborate with 2 songs with him, and actually they're very, very good, it's good. And you've got Somewhere Down the Crazy River with the Bodines. It's a slice of Americana, it really is. It's storytelling. This guy, when he was with the band, when he wrote songs, he wrote them with a great story, and this delivers it as well. And check out Somewhere Down the Crazy River, check out the video on YouTube, just listen to the way he talked through the song, really. And it's a great album. So I'm going to go with Robbie Robertson's his own self-titled solo album. It's number 20. Next, I'm going to go for a British band, originally from Newcastle, I think it was from Durham, up in the north of England. There was 3 members of the band, and they only ever made 2 albums, which was a shame really, because they were great songwriters, the 3 of them together. And they decided to call it a day, and some of them have gone and done a lot of production stuff. But of the 2, I like both, but I'm going to pick this one. This was their first one, and this is The Bad and Low Down World of the Kane Gang. And they were a bit of a pop soul band, if you want to put them that way. The track that broke them was Closest Thing to Heaven, but they covered the Staple Singers classic Respect Yourself, and they've done a damn good version of it as it goes. But there's a track on here called Crease in His Hat, and it really is a brilliant song with a brilliant saxophone solo at the end. It's a very sad song, but it's very good. But it's an album you could check out online or anything, and check out some of the stuff on YouTube. But well worth. Number 19, The Bad and Low Down World of the Kane Gang. Next, I'm going to give a tip to a guy I've really admired. I got introduced to this band. I left school in 1982, and I was just working at the time. And a friend of mine I worked with, a guy called Gary Roberts, his name was, he introduced me to this band. And it's Kirk Brandon's Spear of Destiny, and the album is called One-Eyed Jacks. Now, Kirk is an acquired taste as a singer. Some people, you either like him or you loathe him. But he was in a band previous to that he formed called the Theatre of Eight, which was during the punk period. and they got a bit of a cult following, and he took on the Spirit of Destiny. He formed them afterwards, and he had that, and the band come with a bit of a reputation, I think, like, you know, but they really delivered. But I'm going to give a tip to Kirk, because he's been through a bit of a bad time health-wise over the years, and he's been fronting Spirit of Destiny for over 30 years plus now. But I think he's stuff during the 80s was it, really. Other than that, it's been a little bit hit and miss, you know, and as such, but he's a great guy, and he went through a lot of financial troubles. I mean, people that don't really know about Kirk Brandon, but he had a big court case with Boy George, and when Boy George wrote his biography, he cited Kirk Brandon as his lover, and Kirk didn't like this, and he took him to court and denied all knowledge of it and said it was all fabrication, and he lost the case. He totally lost the case, and it financially destroyed him. He put everything into it. And look, you know, whether he wanted to clear his name or not, whether he was his lover or not, doesn't make no difference. But other than that, he's a great musician. I've got to give a tip to him. But Spirit of Destiny, One Eye Jacks, standout track on the album, Prisoner of Love, Attica's in there as well. Everything You Ever Wanted. You can go through them all, but definitely check this band out, Spirit of Destiny. Okay. Next, I'm going to go for, they are a great American band. They come together as probably all individually good in their own right, and a lot of people call them American supergroup, but they probably weren't, but they went on to that reputation during the later part of the 70s and into the 80s. And this is Toto 5. I mean, it really is it's so brilliantly produced. It really is. I mean, you've got everything on it. You know, there's Rosanna, there's Africa, I Won't Hold You Back, Make Believe, you know, Good For You. It really is a brilliant album. And, you know, two of the guys, Jeff Bricaro is dead now. You know, he passed away, the poor soul. And, you know, it's really good. And Steve Lukather is a brilliant guitarist. Really is a great guitarist. And I'm glad they are still going, because they are still a great live band. But I'm going to pull in Toto 5. Anyone that knows music knows this is a good album. It really is. Next, now, I'm going to go from the man himself, Robert Plant. I've got to pull him in this one, of his solo stuff, which has been really good. I've followed all of his stuff through his solo stuff, from vinyl to CD, all the way through, even up to his latest one. And of all of them, though, I really like this. I think he'd done some great stuff. His first 3 albums that he produced, done in the 80s after finishing with Zeppelin, were really good. And I'm going to go with this one. This was the 3rd one I think he released, and this is Now and Then. It really is a great album. It's good. You know, it's Plant embracing the sound, a different sound, coming away from Zeppelin, you know, taking them shackles off. But it was the first album on this. Is a song called Tall Cool One, and Jimmy Page collaborated with him on that song. It was the first time the two of them come together since the breakup of Zeppelin. But it really is a great album. I thoroughly enjoy listening to this. It's another one. It's very well produced. Thoroughly like it. But another good one, Robert Plant, Now and Then. Next, I'm going to bring him in. I love this guy. I think he's a part of the British institution, and I love watching him, and his career as a musician is great. It's John Lydon's Public Image Limited. It's the album Happy. Now this was a bit into their career. It was a few albums in where he had ventured from, you know, the post-punk of the Sex Pistols into Public Image, and was finding his way. It is a commercial album. I would say it's one of their commercial albums that they went for, but it's got some great tracks. Seattle is a great track, Fat Chance Hotel, Rules and Regulations. But Lydon's just brilliant. I can listen. And then if anyone's never really got into Public Image and all that, you know, they've made such some diverse albums. They really have. But this is well worth checking out. But this is John Lydon's Public Image, Happy. I'm going to put that in my top 20 there. Next, I'm going to pick a band. These are 4 guys from Pasadena, California, whose guitarist totally redefined the sound of rock. Really, I mean, he is an iconic. I mean, we talk of Jimmy Page, you know, and Jimi Hendrix and all the great guitarists that defined eras, and everyone else, the Gilmores and all of them. This guy defined it. When they released their first album, I think it was in 1978, people never heard a guitar sound like it. But I'm going to go with this album. I know all their fans rate the first album as their best one ever, and it is brilliant. But I think this is their swan song, because it was from the original lineup, and it, you know, if a band went off on a high when their lead singer decided to go away, this was it. This is Van Halen's 1984. It's got the songs on it. It's Jump, it's Hot for Teacher, and it's got the brilliant Drop Dead Legs. I mean, it's just brilliant, brilliant guitar playing on it, you know. I love this album, I really do. I really like Van Halen's album. So I'm going to put that one in there as well. This next one I bought, this is from a great British rock band formed in the early 1970s. And they were very young. They were young kids at the time. I mean, they really were kids. I mean, you know, Paul Rodgers, Kossoff, Kirk, you know, they were great. I mean, Rodgers, I think, was 19, 18, 19, not even that, I think, when he sung with them. Like, his voice was phenomenal for his age. But I remember buying this around 1983, and I used to frequent a record store in Soho in London called Reckless Records. And that was a time when so many people were getting rid of their vinyl because the CD age was coming in, and people thought, "Oh, I'll get rid of that, do that." And a lot of people now wish they'd never done it. No more myself, when I stopped buying vinyl and went more into CD. But we all learn. But this is a great album. I'm going to take this out. This is Free, the Free Story. It's a double album. It's got everything of their career on it. But it's a lovely album, and I'm going to take it out because you don't get this. You couldn't read this if it was on CD. But I will show you this, like, because it gives a full story of the Free story. I mean, it really, it's got it all on it. Like, it really has. It goes from A to Z of the beginning of the end. And if you just sit down with a pair of headphones, put this up loud on your headphones and read this and listen, it's great, great stuff. You know, apart from the classic All Right Now, which I know it was their iconic song, it's not one of my favourites as it goes. I mean, you know, Fire and Water, Be My Friend, Morning Sad Morning, Soon I Will Be Gone, The Hunter, you can just go on. My Brother Jake, brilliant album. Well worth checking out if people are looking for free. You can download this, whatever you want to do nowadays. It's well worth it. The Free Story. Next, a band that I really, you know, they're one of my favourite bands. Lifeson, Lee and Peart, Rush. I mean, Alex Lifeson, one of the best guitarists in the world. I mean, just brilliant. Greatest bass player, Geddy Lee, and the drummer of drummers. I mean, the three of them formed air drummers, air guitarists and air bassists for young lads in their bedrooms for years and years and years, because they were so bloody good. But I love all Rush albums, but I'm going to go with this on the fact of I love the albums from the 70s of Rush. I love them, Hemispheres, Farewell to Kings, 2112. I love them albums, I really do. And but I'm going with this. This came out during the 80s when Rush transcended in the 80s to go a bit more, not mainstream, but just cut back from the prog era. And they released this album, and I really love it. And it's Rush, Grace Under Pressure. It's a great album. You know, this Distant Early Warning, Red Sector A, After Images. I could read the whole list out. But there's a killer track on this. It's called Between the Wheels. And if you want to get a taste of Between the Wheels, just go on YouTube, put Rush Live Between the Wheels, and I guarantee you after that, most music fans, if you've never really checked out Rush or not sure, you can buy any of their albums, just check them. But you listen to Between the Wheels, I think you'll start investigating Rush. But this is it, Rush, Grace Under Pressure. Brilliant album, brilliant band, brilliant. Next I'm going to go for, it's a compilation album. Because I've got all his albums, I've got everything he's got, and rather than just picking out a specific one, it's hard. There's 14 tracks on this. Every one of them is a standout track. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You can't fault it. The album title signifies it all. It's Legend, it's Bob Marley. and it is exactly what it says on the cover. It's like Ronseal paint. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Well, this does exactly what it says on the cover. Legend Bob Marley. And I mean, it really does. I mean, it really, really does. It's a joy to listen to any of his, but this is brilliant. But I'm going to put that in there rather than sticking an individual album because it's too hard. So I go with the compilation, Legend Bob Marley. Next, I'm going to go for a band. They're a goth rock band. I mean, if they want to be in the goth era at that time, but more rock, but ventured a bit. This is the early side of it. I was really blew into this band. I loved this album. I remember when I went and bought it, and I played this absolutely relentlessly. I loved it, and I still do. And it's The Cult, Love. It really is a good album. It really is. It's very well produced. It's got a lovely sound on it even now. They were, they were originally 4-piece, but the second album, the drummer left, and they brought in Mark Brzezicki who was from Big Country, if people heard of Big Country, and he plays brilliant drums on it. And the great thing, about vinyl, we all love vinyl, is the fact you can open things up, and the album's got all the lyrics, but you sit back, you get a nice big photo shot of the band in the day, which we all liked in the day. You can't get that. That's the thing we miss about that. And like all them things, all the lyrics on the album and everything. I love this though. It's got a great track, apart from She Sells Sanctuary, which was their stomping track off the album. But it's really good. I mean, Felix, Hollow Man, Nirvana, Big Neon Glitter. I love it. I do love it, and I do play it. I should play it a lot more often. Which but I will. I must get back into that now with the feel of looking that out again. Now, another band very similar to The Cult, but not as hard edged, but in that sort of gothy era, or sort of rocky era. This was their third album. This was produced by Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones. They asked him to come in with this, and he delivered their best album. I mean, it really was a good album. And he even gave them their kind of sort of Kashmir, if you want to call it, which was Tower of Strength. And this is The Mission Children. It is a good album. It really, really is a good album. I mean, regardless of any musical taste, it's a good album. And it's a shame this band, I felt this band was going to give a lot of good bands a run for their money. I think at the time, they could have gone on. I think a lot of excesses got in the way and they dabbled too much and it backfired on them. And it's a shame because they're still going in just with Wayne Hussey forming them, but they've never regained what they were good at. But well worth checking out, The Mission Children. Very, very good album. I'm going to go for now a band that when I was in school, when I was in secondary school, it was around about 1978, and I think it was like 78, 79, and the single then come out, it was Fire, I think it was off the second album. The four lads from Dublin, U2. But I loved this band. I mean, I really was into this band. We all were. They were a lads band, a teenage lads band. And when they crept into England, it took a bit of time, but when they did. But I'm going to go for their first album. And it's U2's Boy. I do love them. I've been very critical of them. Because I think up until Uptown Baby, anything after that, I think it's been pretty mediocre, and I think they've been put along with this great biggest band in the world, and I think that's because Bono's big ego, and he does get on my nerves, like he's a bit up his arse, Bono, like, but that's who he is. But if I can strip that away, take that away from him, if he just shut up for 5 minutes and just concentrate on the music a bit more, I think there's another good album in him, I should say. But this is very good. It was produced by Steve Lillywhite, and it really is a great sounding album, even now when you play it. It's really got a punch, this album. I mean, I Will follows on it, Into the Heart, Out of Control, Stories for Boys, The Electric Co, Day Without Me. Well, all bands usually have their best stuff first, like, as they say, but this is a good album. It really is. I think that, and I go with that, and obviously Joshua Tree, but this one, definitely. I'm going to go for U2's Boy in this collection. Next one is one of my favourite singers, one of my favourite British singers. I mean, he's a great artist and a brilliant songwriter. Um, Peter Gabriel, even with Genesis, it was great stuff. I love Genesis, and I love his stuff with Genesis. But of his solo stuff, which I've followed, I've really loved. But I know it's his most commercial, but it's brilliant. It really is brilliant. He nailed it. He, you know, if he meant it to be commercial, he knew what he was doing. But I'm not sure if Peter did mean it to be commercial, because he had his fans anyway. But it is Peter Gabriel's So. It's a great album. 8 tracks, not one bad one on it. Really not bad one on it. Brilliant, brilliant album from 1986. And who says music was crap in the 80s? Come on, look. There's another statement as to the reason why it wasn't. But this next album now, I'm going to go to now. We're coming into like the top 5 or 6. This is a band that I really got into at a young age. They were from the post-punk era, and I really liked them. I've got all their stuff, all their albums or CDs as it's gone along, and they're such diverse. Their first albums are very dark, but their lead singer is such an iconic singer. He's a brilliant guy. He's a very clever guy. He's a terrific frontman. And if anyone's ever seen this band, he will frighten the life out of you. He's got such a stage presence about him. And they're a band that deserve a lot more credit for all the years they've been going. And this band's been going 30, 35 years or more plus. I mean, they're not far from a full lift. Fronted by the brilliant Jazz Coleman. And it is Killing Joke. And the album I'm going to go for is... it's a personal favourite of mine, and it's probably more their mainstream album. They went from the post-punk period into a bit more mainstream, you know, and that's the way most post-punk bands did. You know, you had to survive, or change and adapt, as they say. And it's a shame that I think he's knocked this album back, the band after itself, over the years, because there's brilliant tracks on this. There really is. And it's a really favourite of mine. I play this so much. I love this album. And it's Killing Joke, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. Between him, the guitars are Geordie Walker, Big Paul Ferguson's drums. And I've got to give a top to the head there is bass player Paul Raven, who sadly died a few years ago. He's only about 44, 45. He died of a heart attack. He's only in his middle to late 40s. And it's a shame because... this really is a great album, and it's a shame they don't play any live stuff of this anymore from this. They've just veered away from it altogether. It's like it doesn't exist. But I think it's brilliant. It's well worth checking out. Killing Joke, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. So, we're coming into a bit of a top 5, I suppose, now. I said I'd veer away from a lot of the iconic guys or bands or artists, you know, the well-known ones, but I'm going to put this guy in. He is the most iconic solo artist probably of all time in the genre of music he's done. But I've got to put him in because it ain't as though he's sold an album that's been 20 or 30 million sellers individually. They've all sold whatever. He's made so many, and it's very hard to put what people's own likes are of him or what their favourite album is. But I'm going to pick mine, and it's Bob Dylan, and it's Bob Dylan's Desire. And it is a great album. It's brilliant storytelling from the... I think the track Isis is just superb. I just rate that as one of his top tracks. I always did. And One More Cup of Coffee. I mean, this is an album, you know, if you want to, you know, put the headphones on, roll the big one if that's what you want to do, and pull it up loud, because this has got it. This is Bob Dylan's Desire. I think Bob was well on a roll here. You know, he done, you know, Blood on the Tracks and all that around that era. That this one for me, Desire is it. Now my next one is, I'm going to go into a very favourite band of mine, a band that I really grew to love as I got more and more into music, you know, and I had a lot of friends that couldn't get it, you know, until they had some of the more commercial stuff went on. But this band come out after their lead singer left them. And everyone thought, that's it, this band's had it, like, because their lead singer had a very iconic voice. And people said, they'll never match it, you know, in them days, it ain't going to happen. But they reconvened in the studio at the time. There was the 3 remaining members of the band. They lost their keyboard player with it as well as their vocalist. And that was Chris Squire, Alan White and Steve Howe. And in the studio next door was Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes of the Buggles. and one went in to listen to the other, as the story goes, and the two of them ended up joining Yes, and they recorded this album, and it was called Drama. And this album got absolutely slated by its fans. A lot of its fans backed away. They really turned on Yes. And you know, there's a lot of stories of when the band come to England to play the gigs, that, you know, people were booing it, you know, going to gigs booing, they want John back. But what's happened over the years, like a lot of good things, is people have come to realise this is a brilliant album. It is fantastic. I mean, it's got, you know, it's the gatefold edition, as you can see there. You know, it's a little bit Spinal Tap, as I say. You know, it's a bit geeky in that way, a bit prog like that time. But it's not prog. It's 1980. This album come out, and it's got the long songs. I mean, there's only 6 songs on the album, but they're great. And the funny side to all that happened over this was John Anderson had listened to this. Rick Wakeman had left and gone, and Trevor didn't want to do another album, which was a shame because he's a good vocalist, because he wanted to continue doing his producing, which he ended up becoming one of the greatest British producers of all time. And when Yes reconvened, John come back in the fold. They brought Trevor in to produce, and he ended up producing their biggest album of all time, which was 90125. And so, thank God, you know, Chris Squire, God rest his soul, had the balls to bring, you know, Trevor Horn in, because without that, they wouldn't have delivered 90125, which was a brilliant album. But I'm going to go with this. It's Yes, Drama. Now, the last 3 now. This is a band I really truly love. It's a shame they are not around anymore, because as their lead singer retired from the music business there towards kind of the late 90s, I'd say. He didn't want to do it anymore, and it's a shame. They're a bit of a cult band, you know, they went along that way in England, but it's Mark Hollis and it's his band Talk Talk, and it's The Colour of Spring. I cannot praise this album enough. I truly cannot praise this album enough. It has 8 songs, another one, no bad song on it. Brilliant album, absolutely brilliant. I listen to it, I get so many great memories from this album. I really do. I mean, from the opening track of Happiness Is Easy, as it just melodically goes along, and then the strings pull in, you're ready for it to go on a journey, and he's going to take you on a journey. The Colour of Spring is absolutely a brilliant album by a brilliant British band who don't get talked up enough, and I love that album. And that's number 3 of that. That's Talk Talk, Colour of Spring. But next, I'm going to go for, without doubt, I think the greatest 2. This band produced the 2 greatest songwriters Britain's produced, I think, you know, since you can talk about Lennon McCartney and Richards and Jagger and other great songwriting parties. They're in there with them. If not, they're up with them on a level as far as I'm concerned. Because what they produced in a short space of time during the 1980s was pretty incredible. I mean, it really was brilliant songwriting. And I loved this, and I got the great opportunity I remember I went to see this band. It was in 1983. It was at the Royal Albert Hall, and it was the albums from the tours from the album, and they were coming to do it was the pinnacle really of the tour. It was come to London doing the Royal Albert Hall, and it is the Smiths, and it is Meat Is Murder. It is brilliant. I mean, come on, people. Anyone that knows music knows this is great. I mean, I don't have to tell you to go and buy a copy or steal a copy. Just go and do it. Download it right now. If you haven't got it, download it now and blast the hell out of this. It is the Smiths at their best. It really is. I know people have said the Queen is dead and the first album, or Strange Ways Here We Come. This does not get any better. It's brilliant album. I absolutely adore this album, and that's my number 2. That's the Smiths, Meat Is Murder. But for number 1, I'm going to go for, you know, I'm older this album now, and this has so many memories, this album. I've got to say they are my favourite band of all time. They really are, of everything. And I don't like pinnacling, this is my favourite band of this. If someone asked me the question, this is your final hour, what album would you like to be played? This is it. This is it. How this band have not even been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame beggars belief for me, because they produce two British songwriters, the same as Morrissey and Marr and all that. But the fact was, they never wrote together. They wrote separately and delivered the tracks to the band. And on this album, I think on this album, this was like a competition. I wrote this. Well, I wrote this one. I wrote this. Each individual song, and the two songwriters are Rick Davies and Roger Hodgson. Who Roger Hodgson, I think, is one of the greatest British vocalists of all time. If not, he is the greatest British vocalist of all time. The man is a genius. The album is Breakfast in America. It is a phenomenal album. In my opinion, it really, really is. It's got the most moving lyrics, the most brilliant songwriting. It's brilliantly produced. There isn't a bad track on this album. And I beg anyone to say if anyone says it's not a good album, come on. You know, I can understand saying that I might not like it all, but from my point of view, this is an exceptional album. And I had the great privilege to go and see Roger Hodgson. You know, because I'd seen Supertramp, but I missed him. He had gone when he had gone from them. And a few years back, a very, very dear friend of mine from Liverpool, Dave Hannon, rang me from Birkenhead. And I give the people in Birkenhead a shout. And he rang me and said, come up to Liverpool. He said, Roger's going to play the Royal Philharmonic in Liverpool. And I went along, and the two of us sat there, and I tell you, like, I had a lump in my throat. It was just brilliant. He played so much stuff from it, and he killed it. He played Child of Vision, which, you know, I think I waited all my life to hear songs like that, and I got to hear it played live, and I have to thank him for that. So this is my album of albums. It is Supertramp, Breakfast in America. End of. That's it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little trip, and I might do another one of these. I might pick one of the best top 10 soul or heavy metal ones. I've got every genre. I might do a best of A to Z of throughout the thousands of CDs I've got, an A to Z of 26 of them from A to Z of different genres, and who knows, stay tuned and I might be back.